this is just about our funding call. So many of you here, you've probably seen it in the newsletter. I'll talk a little bit about what the Connect Everything is and what it does, and then we'll go into that. So you've met most of the investigators. We've just been having a discussion. Fortunately, Sarah couldn't make it today, but she only works at the university one day, but Professor of Human Factors, so very relevant to what we've been discussing here. So Connect Everything is a network funded by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. We've been running for over 6 years now, and we've just found out we've got an extension for another year, which is fantastic. So we've got over 500 members across 150 organisations. So the investigators, we've got Nottingham, Cambridge, Exeter and Liverpool involved today. What we do as a network is it's all about bringing people together around digital manufacturing. We really want to bring researchers who are maybe outside the area of manufacturing into it, or so for example maybe people from chemistry backgrounds or social sciences or biological sciences. We want to get those into them and really act as a place to link up between industry and academia. So what do we actually do within the network? Well, the first thing, and the majority of what we spend the funding we get from the EPSRC is on feasibility studies, and we're going to talk about them in a bit more detail. These are short 6 to 9 month projects. We've got to see really clear early career researcher involvement. So early stage, high risk reward research in manufacturing and digital. We also look at thematic areas, and I'll go through those. So we've brought out 7 themes. We also have strategic agenda setting. So we work with initiatives like Made Smarter, the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, go to the digital manufacturing conferences, and we provide support there when there's new activities or there's something we need to respond to within the Research Council around manufacturing and digital. We also support people movement and skills. So we offer early career researchers opportunities to maybe spend a bit of time working in industry, working at another organisation. So we've had some at BSI, British Standards Institute, but also people who want to come to industry for academia, we can support those. We do conferences and networking events. That's been a bit weird during COVID. So we had the online conferences, and then we had online events with GatherTown. And it was great this year to actually have something in Liverpool in person. That was fantastic. But we also run a lot of events with other networks as well. We convene a grouping called Network of Networks. And this is 27 other EPSRC funded networks. Well, they're not all EPSRC, but they're research networks around digital manufacturing. And that's really to look at best practice within the network and make sure there's support there. Not just, I think academia sometimes focuses very heavily on the research roles, but all the other staff who are absolutely essential to run these, like the network managers, the knowledge exchange roles, outreach roles. So we get together there, share best practice on how to run funding calls. So, for example, in our funding call, we have a double-blind process, so we assess just the research and not the individual, and that's something the EPSRC have been taking forward. And equality, diversity, and inclusion is very big as well. So we track protected characteristics, and we look at those throughout our activities, and we report on them where appropriate. And obviously dissemination impact. So you'll always see our newsletter. And if for those of you who aren't signed up with the network, go on the website, sign up. We're not going to spam you with 50 emails a week. You just get the newsletter, and we tell you about events as well. So what are the feasibility studies? So there's a strong focus on early career staff. You can look on the EPSRC website, see what they call early career staff. Because really, what we want to do in the network is get those future leaders doing research in manufacturing, bringing people into this really critical sector for the UK. So all feasibility studies will align to an industrial need, and this alignment would lead to accelerated movement of project notions or take technologies to a slightly higher technology readiness level. We've already had people contacted us about, we're an early career researcher, we don't have our industry network, it's been really hard to travel around, make those connections, and this is something as a network we can help with as well. If you let us know the kind of project ideas you're working on, we can look at our industry membership list, and we can suggest some potential businesses or organisations that might be interested with you as well. So we're here to help you succeed, and that's something you can do in other projects as well, we have people who are working on proposals and want to get the network involved to support them and help them find partners, and we can do that. All feasibility studies will be expected to demonstrate how they've used the responsible innovation and proposed approach to their proposed activities. So you can look at the area framework, or there's lots of details on RRI on the EPSC website. You can look at that. Other things we're looking for as well is interdisciplinarity within there as well. So projects can be between 6 and 10 months in length, starting in January. Sorry, Deborah, was this the bit you were going to jump in on?
You're doing a grand job, Nick. Continue.
Okay. You feel free to jump in if I've got it wrong. Yeah, so projects can be between 6 and 10 months in length. They start in January 2023, must be complete before end of October 2023, because that's the official end of the network. Our total budget is about 300k. Industry can put in some support if they want, so they could make your project longer, or for example, they could provide half the funding for it. That's fine. The maximum requested is 60k, and we fund at 80%. Yeah. So there is a question and answers on the website, so you can have a look at that. Just a bit about what our thematic areas are, because when we're doing the when you're writing these funding proposals, you need to have a look at those areas and see how it aligns to it. So we have 7 of these. Industrial Internet of Things, so that's all around data collection, connectivity, sensors, cyber physical systems, so how the physical interacts with the cyber, so that could be robotics, for example. Future industrial worker, so thinking about that skills piece, how they interact with these technologies, how will their work change, how can they be trained on the job. Lots of areas around there. Resilient manufacturing, so how can manufacturing respond to some of the changes that are going on in the world? So, for example, rising energy prices, availability of raw materials, the complex supply chains. Data-driven manufacturing is really looking at the role of data across the whole life cycle. How do we use it? How do we store it in these data lakes? How do we ensure it's the right data? We were talking earlier, Fiona, about sustainability there. And one of the challenges with a lot of measuring sustainability is the data you've got actually correct, and what are the right KPIs. Creative manufacturing and customization. So this is bringing those from the more creative disciplines, arts and designs, into manufacturing. And it's not just in terms of designing the actual product, but also designing the process and the manufacturing system, or designing the experience for the workers there. So lots to be done in that. Regulation, standards and guidance. Around interpretability and explainability. So how can you be sure that this isn't going to do something that has an unintended consequence, which could have safety impacts? So other things we've done with our thematic areas, we've supported the Made Smarter proposal, and so we went into there and led a lot of those activities as well. Yeah, and it's been feeding into the 2050 report as well that's been going on. So recently funded studies. So I'm trying to think how many in total over the 6 years we've funded already, but quite a lot. But they are in a range of areas. So actually now I'm one of the investigators, but my first interaction with Connected Everything was coming to one of these events, and then I proposed right in the first round. I can't remember what year this would have been. This project here, Brewnet, which was working with a local brewery in Nottingham, so an SME. 3 people worked there, looking at how we could use ultrasonic sensors connected to the cloud to monitor one of their processes, fermentation. And I was working with Ali in the University of Leeds, who's academic there, looking at connectivity, those kind of areas. And as a feasibility project, we had lots of challenges within it. I don't think it always worked, but what it did is gave us an idea that then we took on, and for example, I've had several impact acceleration grants from the university to further develop this technology. We had a kind of breakthrough a year ago because we were struggling to model the data. We started using long short-term memory neural networks, and they seem to work really well. So we've got about 4 papers out of it now, and we've got a large EPSC project that started early this year, which is about £1 million, looking at digital and food. with collaborators in Aberdeen, Dundee, and one of the examples is brewing. So all the work we've done there, getting in, speaking to the brewers, has really pulled that through. So I think this is an example of what we want these feasibility projects to be, a real springboard for people's careers and to get them into manufacturing. I don't know, Pete, if you put you on the spot again, if you want to kind of just say a little bit about your feasibility project, what you did.
Yeah, so this was laser powder bed fusion, so metal additive manufacturing with Renishaw, and at the time, well, still are really worried about porosity in the parts, and we're looking for a easy way of detecting that porosity had occurred without having to do an expensive CT scan, for example. So the parts were good. The challenge was really to have that extra level of certification, because we needed that to get into more risk-averse areas like aerospace, etc. And it's basically the first grant that I got as a new lecturer, and it was a complete lifesaver. And everything sort of come from there. And yeah, we wrote it down and ended up submitting a patent, and I'm still working with Renishaw today. So you know, it could really change some stuff. So it was all good.
Brilliant, thanks, Pete. And Fiona, I always forget, you also had a feasibility study. Do you want, if you're still on the call, do you want to jump on and?
Yeah, sure. So this was taken in the first phase of the Connected Everything network. It was a project that looked at how we can use data from intelligent products to inform better decisions around kind of end of life. So we worked with Rolls-Royce as a partner and looked at the idea of a product passport. So could we collect data from an engine in our use case while it was in use to better understand kind of the value that it had left in it, so in terms of economic and also environmental value, but also kind of how much life it had left in it, so that then the manufacturer could make more informed decisions about when to recall certain parts based on that quantification of value, when to reuse and remanufacture parts in the development of new engines. And we developed a framework that you could then apply to various other products like mobile phones, for example. And we developed quite a few novel elements in the research, and then used those to write a full EPSRC grant, which was successful. So we won a grant of just under £1 million for a project that was called Circular 4.0, and that's just come to an end. We work with High Value Manufacturing Catapult, Airbus and Rolls-Royce as partners. So yeah, the feasibility study was certainly a fantastic opportunity to springboard that area of research. Brilliant.
Thanks, Fiona. I think the message there is we've all had these feasibility studies, and they've all gone on to bigger and better things, which is what we want to see as a network. So this is the bit where I do pass over to Deborah, because I don't want to steal thunder. So go for it, Deborah.
You were doing a cracking job there, Nick. So obviously today, 12th of October, is the day that we're doing this online session to talk about the feasibility study. And then the 9th of November will be the deadline for submissions, and that will be a pretty strict 5 p.m. deadline. We make that pretty strict because we don't want anyone burning any more midnight oil beyond 5 p.m. So can I also ask Laura just to come on camera, because it will be Laura who will be receiving those applications. And sometimes if you're thinking about applying, it's kind of nice to see the person at the end of that email address. So Laura will be looking after this feasibility study call going forwards, and we'll be there to to support and ask questions, and also we'll be acknowledging receipt of the applications as and when they arrive. So Laura, did you just want to say a quick hello?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm really looking forward to it. Very excited to work with everyone. And obviously I'll take over from Deborah for 3 months. So if you've got any questions or anything, please feel free to email me, and I'll drop my email address in the chat for you. But yeah, hello.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Laura. So then we will then each of the applications will be looked at by 2 reviewers, and they will be anonymously reviewed, and then we will get all those reviews back. So we will be able to get back to you the week commencing 28th of November to let you know whether your proposal is invited to the panel pitch day. And then the panel pitches day has been set on the 16th of December. So, you know, let's be optimistic about that and perhaps save that date in your diary so you know that you're free. The chances is that given the fact that we do have quite a large amount of money for this funding call, £300,000, that panel pitch will probably be lasting the full day to make sure we can see and hear as many pitches as possible. And then hopefully before Christmas, we will be able to let people know that they're successful with a kick-off meeting for those successful applications in the new year, with hopefully there's research being able to start in January.
Brilliant. Do we have another? Oh yeah, there we go.
So just in terms of the application process itself, as I say, it's a 2-stage process. So stage 1 is all about, you know, the written information that you're going to provide on your proposal. We do have 3 parts to the proposal. Part 1 is for your identifying details. So that's where you clearly identify who the team is. A question came in the FAQs about early career researchers, and it is absolutely critical that early career researchers are involved in the feasibility study, and we want those people to be clearly identified in part 1 of the form. As both Nick, Pete and Fiona have, you know, identified, we really do see this funding part as a real opportunity for early career researchers to start on their you know, on their independence journey, their research independence journey, and really use it as a catapult for their future career. So absolutely, early career researchers you know, must be clearly involved. So part 2 is for the research proposal, and we ask you as far as possible in part 2, can you not include any identifying information? We do want this process to be anonymous. And then part 3 is your budget. All the templates are online, and I've put the link in the chat already. So once you have sent your proposal over to Laura, and Laura's put her email in there in the chat, then we will acknowledge the receipt of that proposal and also send you an EDI monitoring form. And as Nick has already described, EDI is absolutely critical to the network and how we support our network members and make sure that we are being representative of our network community as well. So that form is really, really important to us. Each proposal will be reviewed by 2 reviewers, and they will only get sent parts 2 and 3. They will not know who the person is behind the application. They will not know the institution behind the application. So all the reviewers make a recommendation, which then is considered by a small group to agree who then goes forward to the panel pitch. At this point, all applications are still anonymous. Once the applications do get through to the panel pitch, that's where that's where obviously people need to know who was actually submitted. So that's where the proposals, you know, will no longer be anonymous, and each of those PIs and the team behind the proposal will be known to the panel. And as mentioned, you know, once we've decided after the panel pitch who is going to be funded, then you'll be invited to a kick-off meeting to kind of understand the next steps. One of the things that we really like to do as part of this process is to match each of the awarded proposals with a mentor who will be able to help the guide through the process, give them a different perspective. The feedback that we've had from certainly the proposals and the feasibility studies that I've been involved with is that's just been a really helpful sounding board. It's like a really I was going to say a critical friend, but that doesn't sound as positive as it should be, but a very friendly voice, just to be able to bounce ideas off, just be able to share those, you know, whether it's frustrations, whether it's celebrations, but just actually help you work through, and someone who is kind of like independent to the whole process and independent to the university that you're at. So we have found that mentor relationship has been very, very useful. And at every stage, we do like to give, if you want it, we can give you feedback on your proposal as well. And certainly one of the questions that we got through from, from when we launched this feasibility study call a couple of weeks ago was that if anyone has applied before, we absolutely do welcome resubmissions. We do want to hear from you again. And that's one of the reasons why we try and give reasonable, detailed feedback. So if there are opportunities to apply again in the future, you've got that information. Thanks, Nick.
Can I just jump in with a point there, though? What we mean is the feedback once you've submitted it. We can't give too much feedback before you've submitted it because we're involved in reviewing those. But we'd encourage you to speak to other people who've had the feasibility studies. All their contact details are on our website. They're very friendly people within your organisation to get feedback as you're developing this, especially if this is one of the first proposals you've led on. Okay, top tips. Who's doing the top tips? Is this me again?
Yes, it's you.
Okay, yeah. So I guess this is just and Fiona and Pete can jump in again if they've got any comments to add to this as well. I mean, my own reflections on my feasibility study with Ali from Leeds was the problems are rarely the research. It's the getting the contract sorted in time, getting the spending the money in the right way. We had an issue with recruitment. We found an excellent candidate. Fortunately, they chose a better position, a longer position than the 6-month project, and then we had struggled with that recruitment side of it, which is one of the things there. Contracts as well. Yeah, you can see those points there. I think the other thing as well in research is we always feel like we have to show this has worked. In my own brewing project, I mean, within the actual 6 months, I think we managed to collect 2 data sets from the breweries because 2 other times they turned the equipment off by mistake. We were struggling to see correlation. So I mean, I think within the 6 to 9 months, I'm struggling there, going, oh God, what do we write in this this summary that we have to put in the project there? But I think the success came years later. It was a problem worth studying, and we're reaping the fruits from it now. So I think that's absolutely fine. So don't feel. I mean, obviously, you could try your best to do it, but we want to do risky early stage research that might not work, and that's absolutely fine. Also, think about things as okay, where do you go after this as well? I think at that stage of my career, I was probably just thinking this is an interesting project. We'll see what happens. Whereas I think, thinking, and it's just happened that we've turned into some great things. But now it's more about thinking strategically. So I just encourage those to think, okay, so what will you do after that? Because one of the things that we put in the in there and we assess on it is the potential for further funding or future activities. So just already starting to think about those. What would you do as well, and be specific on that as well when you're writing your application. Just saying after this I'll apply for the EPSRC responsive mode or new investigator grant, or I'll go for an IUK. Okay, what competition are you targeting? Where do you see the novelty, the new research bit that you'll put into that EPSRC proposal? So again, thinking about things like that is really, really important. Pete, Fiona, I don't know if you have any kind of little 1 or 2 comments on top tips for people running these.
Just like you said, the key thing is recruitment. It's difficult, and 6 months to a year positions are not very long, obviously. So it's still difficult, but it's my advice would be just to get on it immediately. That is kind of the main risk to these sorts of projects, I would say.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, just building on that point. I mean, if you have a researcher, someone that's coming to the end of their PhD or someone that you can line up with your proposal, that definitely helps to circumvent that challenge of recruitment. Although I know that's not always possible. Also, I think someone asked in the chat about the role of industrial partners. I think it definitely helps to have an industrial partner for the success of the proposal, but also just makes the research a whole lot more interesting. And I think actually these kind of feasibility studies, because they're speculative, they're quite early stage, risky, they're quite attractive to businesses because they don't often get to resource themselves those kind of nuggets of an idea that they think, oh, what if this or what if that? So I found that when I was writing the proposal for my feasibility studies, quite a few businesses were really interested in just sort of talking about blue sky ideas that could be suitable for this type of feasibility study. So I mean, we were a letter of support is great from a business, but they don't have to commit too much. It's mainly in-kind support. As Nick said, use of their data is fantastic, or their machinery, but it's really just their ideas and their input and engagement that we're looking for at this stage.
Yeah, and I mean it's a really good point, Fiona, and that's one of the things we do look at in this is what their involvement is going to be to make sure it is on some level that's appropriate for the project. absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've even had some. I remember some of the feasibility panels. We've even had the industry partner come along as well and say how this would be important for their business as research and that, and how the relationship they're developing with that early career researcher and the academic team. Yeah. Okay, in terms of other things to get top tips, there is podcasts. So what makes a successful feasibility study application? How to prepare for the panel pitch? What happens as a result of my feasibility studies? And I think there's lots on the website about the previous projects, and you can see the kind of ideas they were looking at and what the outcomes were. So I'd encourage you to go. You probably have time to read all of them, but look at the ones that you feel are most kind of relevant to your kind of area. So now what we'll do is we'll have some questions. Thanks, Fiona, for raising one there, but we'll see if there's any others. So I don't know if we want to keep the recording going, or maybe we keep it going for a bit and then we'll turn it off in case people want to ask me about it being recorded.
The new question that came in is, does the network already have industry partners that we can contact, or people can contact?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, we'd encourage people to kind of do this on their own because like it's part of the skill of being an academic, managing those, making those introductions, doing it. But if you do feel you need some help in this area, we're not going to send you a list of all the members, because that wouldn't be, with contact details, that wouldn't be appropriate, and we couldn't do that. But if you get in touch, say, you know, I work in this area and I'd really like a partner who was doing, I don't know, optical sensing, we could go through our list, find a few then, and recommend, you know, so share some details or contact that company on your behalf. We're absolutely happy to do that. But I would say from the first point, think about the partner and think about why you wanted to work with a partner. We don't want this to be like you have to go and find a partner because otherwise you can't get the funding because it's one of the requirements. That's not what it should be about. It should be about thinking about why you want to work with them, what's the value to you, what's the value to them. Have a think about it, and if you do need some help, just get in touch. You've got Laura's detail in there. Yeah. So we've got a question for Fatty. Can you please identify early career researcher? So I can't remember the specific rules, but it's usually to do with number of years after your PhD. So absolutely, assistant professors, that's fine. Postdocs as well. I believe we've had some postdocs who've kind of led this. I mean, if it is led by postdocs, they've got to obviously have enough contract time left past the end of the project. There's things like that. But also we'd probably want to see some more senior academics involved as well to make sure they've got some mentoring and support for that. We do talk a lot about early career researchers here, but it's a requirement that they're involved, but it's not just for those. We do have academics at the other level of their career stage as well being involved. So it's about getting that good mix. Also, one thing we probably haven't talked about enough is there's got to be interdisciplinary. So if it's I'll pick on Fatty because if it's a chemical engineer working with another chemical engineer, it doesn't look very interdisciplinary. But if it's a chemical engineer working with a social scientist or from maths or something like that, then that's more of what we mean by interdisciplinary. Yeah, Deborah's kind of answered that. Industry partner, Simon's there from the KTN. Yeah, I mean, I think that's another point as well. You can turn your camera on if you'd like to, Simon, but I don't want to put you on the spot as I do with poor old Pete and Fiona. But we also have very strong links with the Knowledge Transfer Network, and we've got Simon here, and part of their job is helping industry find funding, find people to work with, and I'm sure. Yeah, do you want to say a few words, Simon? I won't speak for you.
Yep. Hopefully you can hear me because it looks like it's frozen. Yeah. Oh, good. It's just you then. Yeah. So hi, Knowledge Transfer Network. Yeah, we're here to help innovation succeed. So primarily we work with business. I actually happen to be working with academics, working with business on a cybersecurity program at the moment, with a special stream on embedded intelligence, Internet of Things that comes from the Petrus program, which Connected Everything is familiar with. So yeah, we've got some general guidance on how to apply for funding. So I've posted the link up there. But also, if you're looking for further work in the future and you want to reach out to specific companies, you could always try the KTN because we may have some contacts through our communities that we run. That's it, really.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. And I think it's a really good point that you raised there, that one of the best bit of advice that I got several years ago when I first became an academic was get to know the KTN and find out who is the lead person in your area. So Simon Beatty does all the kind of food and drink stuff. So I've, every time I need to find someone, or Nigel was doing the enabling technologies, I would just contact them just to sense check and build that relationship, because sometimes it comes the other way as well. And the KTN will go, you know what, Nick, we've been chatting to a company and they just need a little bit of help in inline sensing in food. Can you help them? And that's been great for my career. So yeah, just as a side note, go on that KTN website and find out who in your area, who the person is, and just send them an email and say hello. They're nice people, they want to help. Do we have any more questions? Maybe if we just stop recording now.